wasn't a territorial prefecture, Jean could name all 12 of those. I never heard of it. Not a city, a planet, a triplanetary empire, technically. An off-worlder, Jean's eyes widened with delight. I never met an off-worlder before. Tonight's scavenge seemed suddenly more fruitful. Though if the man was a tourist, he would likely leave as soon as he could call his hotel or his friends, which was a disheartening thought. Did you get beaten up by robbers or something? Robbers picked on druggies, drunks, and tourists, Jean had heard. He supposed they made easy targets. Something like that. Miles squinted at Jean. You hear much news in the past day? Jean shook his head. Only Suze, the secretary, has a working comm console in here. In here? This place. There was a cryo facility, but it was cleared out and abandoned, way before I was born. A bunch of folks moved in who didn't have anywhere else to go. I suppose we're all sort of hiding out. Well, people living around here know there's people in here, but Susan says if we're all real careful not to bother anyone, they'll leave us be. That person you were with earlier, Yanni, who is he, a relative of yours? Jean shook his head emphatically. He just came here one day, the way most folks do. He's a revive. Jean gave the word its meaningful pronunciation, revive. He was cryo-revived, you mean? Yeah. He doesn't much like it, though. His contract with his corp was just for 100 years. I guess he paid a lot for it a long time ago. But he forgot to say he wasn't to be thawed out till folks had found a cure for being old. Since that's what his contract said, they brought him up, though I suppose his corp was sorry to lose his hope. His future wasn't what he was expecting, I guess. But he's too old and confused to work at anything and make enough money to get frozen again. He complains about it a lot. I see, I think. The little man squeezed his eyes shut and opened again and rubbed his brow as if it ached. God, I wish we had it clear. You could lie down in my bedroll if you wanted, Jean suggested diffidently, if you don't feel so good. Indeed, young Jean, I don't feel so good. Well put. Miles tilted up the water bottle and drained it. The more I can drink, the better. Wash this damn poison out of my system. What do you do for a loo? At Jean's blank look, he added, latrine, bathroom, lavatory, pissoir. Is there one inside the building? Oh, no, not close, sorry. Usually when I'm up here for very long, I sneak over and use the gutter in the corner and slosh it down the drain pipe with a bucket of water. I don't tell the women, though. They'd complain, even though the chickens go all over the roof and nobody thinks anything of it. It makes the grass down there really green. Aha, said Miles. Congratulations. You have reinvented the garderobe, my lizard squire. Appropriate for a castle. Jean didn't know what kind of clothes. I'm going back with some food, Jean offered. After a lie down, my stomach might well be settled enough to take you up on that. Yes. Jean smiled and jumped up. Want any more water? Please. When Jean returned from the tap, he found the little man easing himself down in the bedroll, laid along the side wall of an exchanger tower. Lucky was helping him. He reached out and absently scratched her ears and let his fingers massage expertly down either side of her spine, which arched under his hand. The cat deigned to emit a short purr, an unusual sign of approval. Miles grunted and lay back, accepting the water bottle and setting it beside his head. Ah, God, that's so good. Lucky jumped up on his chest and snipped his stubbly chin. He eyed her tolerantly. A new concern crossed Jean's mind. If heights make you dizzy, the gutter could be a problem. An awful picture arose of his guest falling headfirst over the parapet while trying to pee in the dark. His off-worlder guest. See, chickens don't fly as well as you'd think, and baby chicks can't fly at all. I lost 2 of Mrs. Speck's children over the parapet when they got big enough to clamber up to the ledge, but not big enough to flutter down safely if they fell over. So for the in-between time, I tied a long string to each one's leg to keep them from going too far. Maybe I could, tie a line around your ankle or something? Miles stared up at him in a tilted fascination, and Jean was horribly afraid for a moment that he'd mortally offended the little man. But in a rusty voice, Miles finally said, You know, under the circumstances, that might not be a bad idea, kid. Jean grinned in relief and hurried to find a bit of rope in his cache of supplies. He hitched one end firmly to the metal rail beside the tower door, made sure it paid out all the way to the corner gutter, and returned to affix the other end to his guest's ankle. The little man was already asleep, the water bottle tucked under one arm and the gray cat under the other. Jean looped the rope around twice and made a good knot. After, he climbed back onto the chair and dimmed the handlight to a soft nightlight glow, trying not to think about his mother. Sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. If I ever find bed bugs, I'll catch them and put them in my jars. What do bed bugs look like, anyway? I have no idea. It's just a silly rhyme for bedtime. Go to sleep, Jean. The words had used to make him feel warm, but now they made him feel cold. He hated cold. Satisfied that he'd made all safe and that the intriguing off-worlder could not now abandon him, Jean returned to the parapet, swung over, and started down the rungs. If he hurried, he could still get to the back door of Ayako's cafe before all the good scraps were thrown out at closing time. That's the end of chapter 1. We have about 10 more minutes. Would you like another 10 minutes as far as we can get?
Yeah.
When Armsman Rourke woke for the second time, or maybe it was the third, the opaque drug mush in his head had cleared to a thin, throbbing haze. He felt for his wristcom and found it, unsurprisingly, gone. Groaning, he turned on his musty mattress thrown on the floor of this place and opened his eyes to plain daylight in his first clear view of his prison. It was bare of furnishings. Some kind of old hotel room, he decided after a minute, from the shakes, stains, outlets, corroded-looking sprinkler overhead, and cheap light above the only door. His mattress lay in what might once have been a clothes niche, opposite a small working bathroom with the door removed. A chain bolted around his ankle led in turn to a bolt on the wall. The links were long enough to let him use the facilities. He remembered that from the blurry night, but not to reach the outer door. He visited them again, and, hoping to wash out more of the mush, drank thirstily from a flimsy plastic cup apparently left for his use. A long, narrow window stretched above a stained bathtub. He stared out onto a featureless rise crowded with tall, arrow-shaped conifers, dark and tangled. He rapped on the glass. It gave back that dull tone that said unbreakable, at least by anyone not armed with a power drill or perhaps a plasma arc. He tested the length of his chain. It didn't even go halfway to the door, but by standing upright he found he could see out the front picture window, unobscured by curtains or polarizing filters. They must not expect visitors. This room seemed to open onto a second-story gallery. The view beyond the railing ran downhill to a broad patch of flat scrub that curved out of sight, framed by more tangled taiga. Not another building to be seen. He wasn't in the city anymore, that was certain. Had there been any urban glow on the horizon last night? He could only remember the night light in the Louvre. He could be 10 kilometers from Northbridge, or 10,000 for all he knew, which could make a difference later. He folded his considerable length back onto the mattress and began working at the bolt in the wall, the only item even remotely resembling a weak point. It didn't budge, and his big fingers could scarcely get a purchase on the annoying little thing. If only he could get it started wiggling. How the devil did I end up in this mess? He imagined Armsman Commander Pym critiquing his actions of yesterday and cringed. This was 1,000 times worse than the infamous bug butter debacle. It all started so benignly 4 weeks ago, if abruptly, but there was nothing new to that. Lord Auditor Vorkosian's galactic assignments from Emperor Gregor usually arrived abruptly. After a dozen off-world trips in my Lord's wake, Rourke was getting practiced at the scramble to arrange my Lord's luggage, in his role of sometimes Batman, my Lord's in his own travel documents, in his role